Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Season 4 of DMs with PM. It is an absolute pleasure to have you back for another season. I know we were missed because I got the calls, I got the messages. So now is your time to tune in and, of course, share the word, share the live, and give other folks the opportunity to be part of this evening's Season 4, Episode 1, sorry. Of course, we'd like to say special thank you to our partner stations, Power FM, Star FM, We FM, GBN, Fusion FM, and Vibes FM. To those of you viewing on Facebook and YouTube, good afternoon, good evening, good night to you, depending on what part of the world you're in at this point in time. And again, it is an absolute pleasure to be back here, of course, to host DMs with PM. We have the Honorable Prime Minister in our company as usual. PM, good evening and welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be back. Season 4, Episode 1. We sound like a Netflix series, but it's a pleasure to be here. Good evening to all of the listeners, the viewers, to those who are hearing us via the radio stations, via the live stream. It's a pleasure, and I look forward to this episode.
And I must do a special shout out to the folks in Carriacou. Carriacou is just such a beautiful place, the energy, the vibe, and I got so many when are you guys coming back messages last week. So I just want to say hello to Carriacou, and we're live and kicking again.
Don't forget Petit Martinique.
Petit Martinique, yes. Yes, Petit Martinique. I also visited Petit Martinique, and while it's beautiful, it takes a different energy to live on Petit Martinique, I swear, but it's a beautiful place.
It is.
Okay. Well, on a more serious note, of course, today we learned of the passing of one of our media practitioners, Ms. Linda Straker. Anything you'd like to say, PM?
Yes, certainly. I was aware that she was ailing for some time, and obviously it was with sadness that we learned of her passing today. So on behalf of myself and the government and people of Grenada, and certainly to the media practitioners, her immediate family, her children, we express our condolences and may her soul rest in peace. She was a mainstay of Grenada media and contributed a lot to it, so she certainly will be missed. But she's left behind a body of work that I think would be testimony to her journalism over the last several years. So certainly, again, to the media fraternity, to her family, we express our condolences.
So, like we said, this season we have so much to unpack. A lot has been happening, a lot will be happening, and of course, you get the information right here. You get to ask the Prime Minister your questions directly. You can call, you can send it to the DMs, or of course, you can also interact on the streets and ask the questions. So, PM, on the flip side of things, how do you decide which public concerns deserve immediate attention versus long-term planning?
Well, you're bowling quite a fast delivery right off the right off the bat. No, I would say there are a couple of things that can help with this. First, we were elected on a manifesto mandate campaign. There are things we said we wish to address. The public would have had the chance to listen to us, and given that the public would have chosen to put us into office, I think it's important, first and foremost, for us to go back to the manifesto, because it sort of becomes the Bible as a bit of a compass in terms of what we do. So the things we said that we would wish to accomplish via manifesto, I think is certainly one of the things that we would prioritize, both from an immediate and a medium to long-term perspective. So I can give two examples. We said we would pay the pensions, and although we didn't put a timeline, we paid it by November. And notwithstanding that it was a 40-year battle, and everybody said, or certain people said, it will be the end of Grenada if the pensions were paid. We said we will pursue the building of a climate-smart teaching hospital, and we are doing so. Now, obviously, building a hospital or building any building is a more medium-term project, because you have to have land, you have to have the design, you have to have the financing, you then have to get into all of the tendering that goes with it, construction, even for a simple, straightforward building, much less a more custom-specific hospital. But these are examples, obviously, of wide-ranging healthcare and pensions, economic stability after one has worked. But we have to be able to, I think, distinguish between the urgent, which oftentimes is distracting, and the important. In my daily routine, everybody wants to speak to me. Everybody wants to have a meeting. Everybody sends a text message. Everybody wants you to return a call. And from everybody's perspective, their matter is urgent. And it is, because to them it is urgent, it is also important to them. But it requires me as the leader of the country to actually be able to distinguish between what is urgent merely because somebody says it is urgent and what is important for the long-term benefit of the country. So I could spend my day, for example, taking every phone call, responding to every text message, trying to meet everyone who says I have a meeting, and at the end of the day, I can go up to 1, 2 in the morning, I will be exhausted and I would have accomplished nothing. And we have therefore to be able to say, okay, what were we elected to do and what are the priority issues for governing a country? So we can take important things like our education system. There is a need for significant reform in the education system because we appreciate that when it comes to youth unemployment, it leads to high youth unemployment. There's significant mismatch between what is required in the economy, the job skills, the job set, and what people are coming out with. There is oftentimes significant frustration from the business community. And if you have youth unemployment, then you'll have youth poverty. Youth poverty is going to lead to social issues, dysfunction, potential for crime, etc., instability in the society, etc., etc. So that is important. So it means we have to have the discipline to carve out the time to talk, to find the public policy, to find the resources, to actually go and change the education system. Because if we do this, we are changing Grenada from a long-term perspective. So if 10 years from now, we don't have technical schools, we don't have vocational schools, we continue to have high rates of unemployment, we continue to have to import labor to do tiling and plumbing and electrician and erecting windows and doors, then we would have failed in addressing what is important. But I might have been a good politician because everybody wants to have access to me, have access to me. Everybody wants to speak to me, can speak to me. Everybody wants to meet me socially, can meet me socially, can take a picture. But if in 10 years, after doing all of that, the education system is exactly what it is today, then we would have failed. And unfortunately, in our societies, we've had too much of the politics, which is the distracting, the urgent, and very little of the governance, very little of the important, very little of where we are going. So it is finding the balance, because obviously you are doing it for the people. So if you come up with the greater education policy, you're implementing it, but then you're not there to explain to the people, you're not there to take questions from them, you're not there to make sure there's stakeholder buy-in and engagement, then you also will be successful but fail in another way, because the policies might be great, but then they don't see you, they don't hear you, they feel no connection or relationship with you. So a sweet talker comes along, they vote you out, and they put the sweet talker in office, who then continues the politics, but no governance. So that is really the balancing act that we have to do, guided, I think, by a couple of things. The mandate, which is the manifesto, things like the National Sustainable Development Plan, because that was done nationally, things like Vision 75, and also paying attention to the world, because you can't live in a bubble. If technology is becoming obsolete, you can't continue using obsolete technology because there's been nobody to support the technology, there's nobody to provide the hardware, and then effectively you'd be left behind. So when you see things like AI, you have to pay attention to it. You have to recognize that you have to adopt new ways of learning, you have to adopt new knowledge. You have to make sure the education system is reflecting that. If you don't do that, then again, you'd be in trouble. So whether it's on the energy front, whether it's on the health front, whether it's even the way in which education is delivered, you have to pay attention to those things, because you could be left behind quite easily. So it's not easy, but I guess I'm just giving the broader context. You have to be part of the regional international community. You have to have your own values as to what is right and what is not right. You have to have a plan, and then you have to try and implement the plan.
To narrow it down a bit, though, how do you decide which issues are most important, and then what decisions do you have to make to pass the bill in Parliament?
All right. So there are a number of metrics you can use. How many people are impacted by it? Is it a private issue as opposed to a public issue? So the more people are impacted by something, then the more important it is. The more it is something that is of public use, which is, again, it impacts a lot of people, the more important it is. What are the unintended consequences of not addressing it? Because oftentimes you may want to achieve something, but you're not paying attention to if you achieve it, what it will do for other persons. That also is important. What is the cost of it? Can you afford it? Do you have the resources to be able to do it? A good example would be, all of us would want highways, all of us would want better roads, but you have to build a road and you have to pay for it. So we may all say it'd be nice to have 4-lane roads, but can we finance the 4-lane roads? And if we can't finance it, then obviously you stick to your 2-lane roads because you can finance it. So you could use a number of sort of those basic metrics to determine what is important, the impact on people, how many people, the cost of what you need to do, the likelihood that you will be successful in implementing it to be able to address this. In terms of how we pass bills in Parliament, I think we start from the policy. What is the public policy good that you're trying to achieve? I had an interesting discussion with 2 doctors today, and we were talking about preventative healthcare, and they were talking about the need for screening at an early age. Now, there is nothing in law that says any Grenadian needs to be screened. But we could pass a law that says once you turn 18, you have to be screened. And we could say for what? I'll give an example whether you're likely to be a candidate who's likely to suffer from diabetes. And if we say you must be screened, we can explain why. Because if you're not screened and you develop diabetes, it means the state is going to have to take care of you. Or you run the risk of renal failure. And then everybody comes to say renal treatment is expensive and the government needs to do more. And I would say, well, okay, where's the government getting the money from to do more? And do you have renal failure now because you were irresponsible before, because of your lifestyle, because of your diet, because of your refusal to be screened? We could have that discussion. We could get consensus and we could say, to help us prevent large sections of our population getting diabetes, reversing diabetes, suffering from renal failure, from the amputations, from the low productivity that addresses that, from the high cost of taxpayers' money to, in fact, address all these illnesses, we will say, to help us detect and to help us ensure that people then change their lifestyle, there is mandatory screening. Now, some people may say it's an imposition on their freedom. And we will say, yes, it's an imposition on your freedom, but the incentive for that imposition is that if you are screened early, there's less chance of you developing it. We will support you with changes in your lifestyle, in your food, in your diet. If you refuse to get screened, that's fine, freedom of choice, then don't come to the government and ask for assistance. Because you are choosing an action that says you will finance your healthcare yourself when it's preventable. That's just an example. So if we develop such a policy, if there's consultation, stakeholder, there's sufficient buy-in for it, we all agree it's in our best collective interests, then you write the policy, you go to Parliament, you pass the legislation, and then you essentially say the bill is a bill that requires mandatory screening for certain non-communicable, highly prevalent diseases in Grenada. The rationale is to detect it early, to ensure people mitigate the risk of getting it, to help people reverse it. The incentive is that if you are screened, you get access to all the government health care systems, even if you develop it, because at least you would have been screened, you would have tried, etc. If you choose not to be screened, because we can't compel certain things, in those circumstances, then you don't have access to the healthcare services because you're saying, I'm on my own. That's a simple example of what we could do. And obviously, there are countless other examples, but in essence, obviously, you get to Parliament, the bill is read, you have the pros and cons, people debate, you go to the Senate, and whoever has the majority in the House obviously will pass the bill.
You know, we hear the term stakeholders a lot.
Yes.
Who are the stakeholders that is often referenced?
Anybody who's impacted by what the bill is about. So in the example I use, it will be the entire population. It will be doctors, it will be insurance companies, it will be healthcare providers. Because essentially, healthcare is a public good that all of us suffer from. I'll give an example. You know, we had a lot of controversy over a bill that was designed to allow people under 18 years old to have access to a doctor and nurse for health and sexual health care. And people were saying all kinds of things. This is removing parental consent. This is allowing children to have sex without permission, etc., etc. So who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders will be children, young adults or teenagers, parents, the healthcare practitioners, the police officers, the perpetrators. All of them are stakeholders, and you have a conversation about what is in our best interest. But at the end of the day, somebody has to decide. And our system is set up in such a way that if you have 8 out of the 15 seats in Parliament,
Majority rules,
then it's your job to decide. But you can always change and reverse legislation as well. It's not simple and straightforward. You have to go through the same process. But ultimately, somebody has to make a decision, and you kind of hope they're always acting in the best interest of the majority. And sometimes, even when the majority may not be supportive of something, it is in their best interest. You know, it's not always the case where the majority of the public may share an opinion that actually redounds to the benefit of the public. And that's where leadership matters, because sometimes you have to take tough unpopular decisions, and in the long run, people will come back 5 and 10 years and say it was the right decision.
But do you ever feel a sense of frustration when when you have a particular something that you're passionate about and you think it's the right decisions, and then you get kickback, whether it's within Parliament or from the public? Because a lot of the times you'd hear, okay, well, there are consultations, and you go to these consultations and probably you see a handful of people, depending on what the topic is, or it probably will be just the facilitators and a few. And then at the end of it, you'd hear people saying, well, we didn't know, we were not consulted, but several times consultations would be broadcasted, people don't show up. So does that add to your frustration?
It does, but I think I also understand our culture. People like excitement. They like drama. When things are substantive and boring and requires a lot of work, they don't pay attention. So oftentimes, they only pay attention when it appears to be sensational or when somebody tries to make it sensational. So, a good example would be the budget. Before the budget gets to Parliament, the Ministry of Finance and the team go to each and every parish. They meet with employers, they meet with trade unions, they ask people to contribute to say. Some people show up, some people don't show up. And a lot of what people say or don't say actually informs what ends up in the budget. But oftentimes, the population may simply not be paying attention. And then when you get to the budget or you get to the debates, because it's a debate, people then pay attention and people are saying they're hearing this for the first time. But in many instances, the information is there all the time, but people are not paying attention. And then obviously with the onset of social media, it's easy for people to just outright spread false information. And oftentimes the false information is sensational. So then people respond to it and you get a lot of what I call manufactured bubble controversies.
Or a snippet of what was said.
Or a snippet of what was said. So, but I understand the culture. So personally, I don't really get frustrated. I think what you have to have is determination when you know it is right, when you know the consultations have taken place to proceed. If someone is making a valid point, you have to be humble enough to say, okay, let's hold on, let's listen to what they have to say. And if it makes sense and you need to correct or amend or change, then you do so. But you don't always have to, in a sense, get annoyed or, because that's democracy. People are entitled to their opinions, even if it's not one based on fact or even if you differ with the opinion.
All right, we've had quite a mouthful. I think it's time for us to take a quick break. And when we come back, of course, we have your DMs. Be right back.
Greetings to the Grenadian diaspora in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, the Caribbean, and as far as Africa. Today, I address you as the Minister responsible for tourism, the creative economy and culture. But I also address you as a proud son of the soil. I invite the Grenadian diaspora to the Homecoming events 2026. We no longer think of you as providers of remittances. We believe that you have much more to offer. We want a partnership with you in the progress of our nation. We want you to be part of the investment scenario in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. So I beg you, come with your ideas, come with your love, come with your passion, and help us to build this beautiful country of ours. Today, these 2 weeks that we are talking about, you will enjoy the music, you will enjoy the cuisines, you will enjoy our scenery. We have a lot to offer. It is a time to reconnect with your culture, your heritage, with the people that you have left so long. We want you to be part and parcel of the whole development process. So I invite you to come home to the Diaspora Homecoming 2026. And I also invite you to visit our website, www.homecoming.gd, and register today. Get ready to be part of this great event, the Grenadian Diaspora 2026.
Welcome back to our viewers and listeners again to DMs with PM, and this is about time. It's about time to read some of your DMs. And we have our very first question from Donnie. And Donnie says, I would like you to organize some training for the customs officers on the airport. When we as Grenadians return from a vacation, they act like they hate us for traveling and it's very rude to us. their own people, but smile from ear to ear with white people, but treat their own horrible. So I think they need some training with Eddie Frederick and therapy on hating their own brothers and sisters. Thank you, Danny. I've never had that experience, so I can't say.
Yes. Well, thank you, Danny, for the comment. I think I will take the comment this way, that we constantly have to improve our customer service experience, but also the customer officers have to do their jobs. I know sometimes it goes back to the tax question. We never want to pay taxes, and the job of the customs officer is to, in fact, collect the taxes when they are due. And for those who don't want to pay taxes, that's never a pleasant experience because you don't want to pay it. But that aside, I would say from a Grenadian perspective, whether it's immigration, whether it's customs, whether it's police, whether it's just the public service in general, I will accept that there is certainly a need for improvement in customer service. There is a need for improvement in how we treat with the public. And that is something from our customer service standards we are committed to improving by us having training and making sure that public officers understand that essentially they are serving the public. And it's important to make sure that the public, when they engage with us as public officers, come away feeling good. Even if it's a request to pay the taxes, we want them to go away feeling happy that they've been made to pay the tax by the experience they've had with the tax collector. So your point is well made.
Okay. We have another DM from Alan. Is it possible to make public the business case, EIA and flood mitigation plan for Project Polaris?
Alan, yes, it is possible. I can't give you the definitive when each document will be available because many of them are quite bulky. I would certainly, from the design perspective, the designs are naturally going to be public documents. They also have to be filed at the Planning and Development Authority, and the EIA is part and parcel of that design process because the environment and social impact assessment will obviously inform the ultimate design. I know there's been a significant consultation already by Perkins and Wills, the consulting firm that is doing the designing, with a lot of stakeholders in Grenada. I think some of those consultations were actually public. The business case documents was prepared by Deloitte. I will have to speak to the Project Polaris team to verify whether there are any confidentiality issues surrounding the document itself, but those documents certainly could be made available. I just want to make one point on the business case, because people have to appreciate that healthcare is not, in the strictest sense, from a public national perspective, a business. There are certainly opportunities for certain aspects of healthcare to be treated that way, and for investment, private sector investment in particular. But no one asks us for a business case when we're building a road. So we need to bear that in mind by way of example. Healthcare is not, in a national sense, a business. It is a public good that we as a country must provide to our citizens. But yes, there's a business case that informs a lot of the financing surrounding the hospital.
Okay. We have another question again from Danny. Says, I know a young lady who has finished SGU almost 1 year now and has been actively looking for a job and has been told either she is too qualified or too qualified with no experience. So how will she gain experience if she can't get work? All the people that our government is sending to study, what will be their fate?
Right. Thank you, Danny, for the question, and it's a relevant question. I agree that you can't get experience unless you get a job, or you can't get experience unless you are prepared to start your own job or start your own business. So from that perspective, naturally, I have a lot of empathy for the former student who is yet to find employment. So naturally, it is something that we would certainly encourage. I don't know whether she's looking for work in the private or the public sector, but naturally, I think we want to encourage employers to better our young people, to give them the benefit of the doubt, especially if they've taken the effort to pursue tertiary level education. The second point that I want to make, though, I think it's important more and more now because of the dramatic changes that are taking place, both in terms of how education is delivered, in terms of what are the skill sets that are actually needed in Grenada, and the technology, that when someone, that you don't just go to university for going to university's sake. You have to do some analysis of what are the jobs that are available in the country in which you live, and be prepared to pursue some of those opportunities, because if not, you will end up with a mismatch where you are pursuing knowledge that may very well be obsolete, or knowledge that is less likely to result in you being able to get a job. And that's one of the critical things we need to appreciate. Where there is significant demand in Grenada is for jobs that requires your hands, technical, vocational jobs, or what I would call specialist jobs. I'll give an example. Grenada and the OECS, the Caribbean, even the United States, suffers from an acute shortage of air traffic controllers. In Grenada's case, the shortage is even impacting the hours we operate the airport. My understanding is that it requires physics, geography, and math, 3 subjects. Training in Trinidad is 6 months, then you can come back, get on the job training here, and you can be an air traffic controller and earn a pay that is probably above the average mean income of Grenadians. There's a shortage here, there's a shortage throughout the region. But too often people don't pursue those careers either because they don't know or because they're not taking the time to do the kinds of investigations that we need. I could give an example in the police service. More and more we will need people with highly specialized skills in technology, in forensics, in cybersecurity, etc., because that's where the jobs are. So I'm not knocking other areas of learning. I'm not knocking a degree in sociology, for example. But the likelihood that you will get a job because you have a degree in sociology is probably 0 in Grenada. The likelihood that you will get a degree, that you will get a job if you have some form of certification in marine electronics, in automobile electronics, in painting, in tiling, in plumbing, in construction, is probably 1,000%. In being able to use heavy equipment, machinery. And these courses are oftentimes not a 3-year course like the average university degree. They're often 6 months, 12 months. And by the time you're training, you probably have on-the-job training, you have internships where you can get money. So we have to be real, and we have to ensure that we re-educate ourselves, because schooling is not education. Going to school to pass the time is not education. We have to re-educate ourselves about where the jobs are. And we also have to re-educate ourselves about our ability to create jobs rather than wait for someone to give the job. So I obviously have empathy. I don't know what is the subject area that was studied, and I'm not sure where the young person is looking in terms of whether it's the private sector or the public sector. But sometimes it means even after having a degree, you may have to go back and reskill by taking a short-term course that is more relevant to the job market that we have.
And that is so true, because I personally know of someone who did another course that they weren't getting a job, and he decided to do plumbing, and now he doesn't have enough hands or enough time to do anything else because the job is constantly taking in places and happening. So that is something we have to look at as we move ahead, you know. We have another question from Joanna. What are some of the proactive measures government intends to take to help Grenadians cushion the global challenges regarding the ongoing war, which will definitely affect the cost of living?
Thank you, Joanna. It's not intended to take. We have already taken those measures. So we can start with what is perhaps the most significant input that impacts the cost of living, which is the cost of energy and primarily the cost of fuel. Since this administration got into office, we came into office coming out of COVID, which had brought significant disruption to the world economy. And there was significant logistics, transportation issues arising from COVID, significant undersupply of almost every type of goods and services. Freight costs was off the chain, as people would say. And in a sense, the Iran-US-Israel war has created a similar impact. And as small developing countries, we have shocks all the time, whether it's hurricanes, whether it's wars, whether it's geopolitical tensions. So we've built in resilience mechanisms into our fiscal and economic policy. So we have a standing policy that this government adopted that says, for instance, once the cost of fuel reaches $17 or above at the cost at the pump, we will subsidize it and cap it. So it means, as it stands now, the cost of fuel is significantly over $17 a gallon. And the government has capped it, which means you are paying at the pump the $17. LPG cooking gas, both the 100-pound cylinder and the 40-pound cylinder. The 40-pound cylinder has been permanently capped at $40, and it has been that way for a significant period of time. If we didn't cap it, it would probably cost almost double for a 40-pound cylinder of cooking gas, which is what the average Canadian uses to cook, to be able to create food. So when we talk about the cost of living and impact on food, that is one significant issue. The fuel you need to prepare food is subsidized by more than 50% currently by the government. Initially, we did not cap the 100-pound cylinder, but the rise in the 100-pound cylinder was astronomical as well. And so we've gotten to the point where we've capped it as well, so that if it goes, I think, over $300 and that is still a significant increase that has already happened, we will pay the difference. So I'm pointing that out because fuel, in the form of the ability to cook your food, the ability to drive your vehicle, and then the cost of the fuel that Grenlec uses to produce the energy is one of the significant things. We've actually had a standing subsidization policy in place for persons who consume less than 99 kilowatt hours, where the government pays $10 towards the electricity bill. So there's a permanent rebate there. We've had in place, for example, with the bus owners, because they wanted an increase. And I've said to them, I understand why they want an increase. They have not had an increase for, I think, over 15 years in the cost of transportation. They've argued quite persuasively that parts have gone up, fuel prices have gone up, brakes have gone up, and they're the only ones who haven't gotten an increase. And we've said, we hear you, we understand, but transportation is a public good. And we recognize that if we pass on those costs to the public, again, the cost of living, the impact, particularly for school children and workers on, so would be negative and would impact your own business because people may not even be able to afford the transportation. So we've discussed with them. We've said we will give you concessions on parts. We said we will give you rebates on gasoline. It was initially for a 1-year period. I met with the PSN Transportation today. We've agreed to bring back the submission to Cabinet to continue the rebate on the fuel. And bearing in mind, we are capping the cost of the fuel as it stands right now. So we are already paying for the partly for the fuel that bus drivers use to transport the public, and we will go back to get rebate on parts and rebate on concessions and so on. So these are just simple examples of how we are actually already dealing with mitigating the cost of living for persons. But I want to emphasize this. The cost of living is the importation of inflation. So if you import goods that you don't produce, you have no control over the price. So you become a price taker, which means you take the inflation. There are significant things we could do to substitute the importation of food. Meat is a perfect example. Goat, sheep, pig, rabbit, you name it, we can produce those things in our backyards, right? And the Ministry of Agriculture has taken significant steps to address livestock production in Grenada. We don't want to eat ground provisions. We want pasta and wheat, right? And rice. All of those things are important. And all of them are actually quite expensive because they are commercial projects that have to be produced in large quantities. Take wheat, for example. When you had the Ukraine war, the price of wheat went up. Nothing is wrong with cassava, sweet potato, ripe plantain, blogo, dasheen,
and we're growing our
callaloo,
own potatoes now.
corn, green peas, and we have, oh, I forgot it, the big one. We're growing ripe potatoes now, right? So we can grow. And I'm not even talking here, and I'm talking here at the individual level, because the person is asking that we can grow a significant portion of the basic staple food, the vegetables. We can grow it, right? So even if it was not being done on a large commercial scale, each of us in our backyards, because the land hasn't disappeared in Grenada, can grow a lot of the food that we need. And then we ain't talking about fishing yet. You can still catch crayfish in the river, right? A lot of us don't eat the fish that our fishermen catch. So it's important for us to emphasize that when it comes to food, a lot of the food can be produced even at a small scale and consumed in Grenada. A lot of our spices, we go and buy seasoning in the supermarket that is imported and made in Mexico and all these places. Every type of seasoning could be grown, right? We could pickle the cucumbers. We can dry the tomatoes. There are lots of things. But again, it's a food technology. It's also changing how we prepare our food, how we preserve our food. So a lot of it is within our control. And we could spend a lot of less money on importing food and on growing our own food. So I know it was about the government, but I think it's important for us to also take personal responsibility for how much money we spend on imported food and how much imported food we consume.
All right. Again, you are viewing DMs with PM, and of course, you're also listening via radio. We are due for another commercial break, and when we come back, we have your DMs from the street.
To every Grenadian, wherever you are in the world, this is your invitation. Grenada Diaspora Homecoming 2026 is more than a celebration. It is a moment of reconnection and a call to action. Across several continents, the United Kingdom, the Caribbean, and beyond, Grenadians continue to excel, to lead, and to represent who we are. You're an essential part of our nation. Now, we invite you to come home
not just to visit, but to engage, to invest, to share your knowledge, to build new partnerships. Grenada is growing in trade, in exports, in opportunities. And through this homecoming, we are creating real pathways for you to connect with business, with government, and with the future of our country. This is your home, your roots, your legacy. Come home. Let us reconnect. Let us collaborate. Let us build Grenada together.
The Ministry of Agriculture White Potato Production Initiative is an OECS sub-regional project aimed at reducing Grenada's reliance on imported white potatoes, which in 2025 had an imported value of over 4.5 million EC dollars. The White Potato Production Initiative is part of the Ministry of Agriculture's food security drive and is being undertaken with the simultaneous cultivation of other crops such as sweet potatoes, pineapples, coconuts, carrots, and other vegetables. Other OECS countries like Dominica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines are already at an advanced stage in white potato production, with Dominica completely cutting the import of white potatoes during the first quarter of 2026. Grenada is now preparing to advance production for better output in 2027. The Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Forestry, ensuring food and nutrition security for all.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to DMs with PM. It's just about time for us to take a look at our DMs from the street with Norris.
Welcome back to another amazing edition of DMs with PM Season 4. And prepare yourself, people, for our interactive and informative session with DMs with PM. Come with me as we get the DMs from the streets. Welcome to DMs on the Street, my brother. What's your name?
Patrick?
Patrick?
Yeah.
Well, Patrick, ask your Prime Minister a question.
I haven't got a question to say, but what I would like to say is I think the Prime Minister and the government has been doing a really good job compared to when I was in here in 2017, 2020, and 2024. I've considered improvements of Grenada. My only thing is basically that there's too much mechanics on the road, creating a bottleneck, especially in dangerous areas going around some of the bends. They're blind bends. So when you drive around them, you really can't really see what's coming the other way. That's one thing I like to say. If you can, try and curve that a bit and stop people from basically blocking the view. There's a nice view around the sea coasts, and you've got people that's putting up things around the sea coast in the areas, which is a really nice tourist view. And you have people just actually blocking it out because they're putting up these shacks and it's not worthwhile. That's all I got to say. To the PM, congratulations. Hope you're here for the next 10 or 20 years.
Correct is right.
Well, thank you very much for the comments and the well wishes. I hope I'm wrong for 10 to 20 years, yes, in person. So the comments about the roadside mechanics, the comments about the shacks along the roadways is certainly something that we too are concerned about. In terms of the roadside mechanics, obviously mechanics are needed. There are a lot of vehicles in Grenada. We recognize that we have to help find suitable places where industrial type activities like mechanic repair shops can be located in sort of industrial parks where we can help with finding a solution to some of that challenge. So that is something we are working on and trying to identify places where possibly that can happen. The uncontrolled erection of shacks along our roadways, along the side of the roads for vending and other things is obviously something that we are very concerned about as well. For vendors who are genuinely trying to make a living, we certainly have plans in place to try and create more market space. We are currently working on one for what is called Las Just Natural Works. The architectural designs have been done. The engineering design should be completed shortly. And then we hope to go to tender. We will build 2-story vending booths that will cover the sort of lawn area and the external area. And then we are hoping later on to repair the original stonework that exists, the historic building there, the water wheel, etc., convert that into a museum, a restaurant, and then an outdoor open space for weddings and other social activities. But we believe that by addressing the vending booths area first, we can take care of a lot of the vending that is, for example, taking place on the roadside in Lassa just currently, in places like Corinth and Westall and so on. There are two other areas that we've tentatively identified, one in the Calavini area. The government doesn't own the land, so we have to take steps to acquire the land and then create the market space there. That area is the area sort of located next to SOG Foods, where there's a tractor, I think, dumped there currently. We are looking potentially at that site. We have to evaluate whether it's suitable because there's a water course close by. And then the next area is in Grandance, alongside the Republic Bank area. The government owns some land there, and we're looking at the possibility of being able to erect a market space there, and potentially even a bus terminus to address the traffic and the vending in Grandance. So we do recognize that obviously a vendor wants to be in a high traffic area. And we want to be able to encourage that by having all the vendors clustered so that the traffic can come to them rather than vendors feeling the need to go out on the side of the road, which is dangerous, which oftentimes is unhealthy, and you're in the sun all day. And then people stop to buy and then the traffic backs up. I think we see what's happening with the coconut vendors and so on. And I will be the first to say we want to support economic activity, but we can't support lawlessness, right? And at the end of the day, lawlessness will reduce economic activity. There will be safety and security concerns, and we also want to dispel the loitering. And then we also want to address the health concerns and so on, because a lot of these things oftentimes lead to people are vending, there's no bathroom, there's no toilet, there's no water, and they're selling food or they're handling stuff, and you have to buy and so on from them. So these are all concerns that we have to the point that was made about stakeholders, these are all concerns that I think stakeholders, including the vendors and those who are their clients, need to be aware of. But we recognize that we have to help, and that's why we've sort of identified those areas, and we're hoping, therefore, at least with Lassa, just if that can start this year and perhaps be completed next year, then we would have a significant market space for the first time from the tongue of St. George to the tongue of Grenville, where we can at least get maybe 15 or 20 market vendors, or vendors, frankly, into those spaces so that they can ply their trade and then work on the south of the island and work on Calavini, at least on the west coast, on the east coast, sorry.
Okay. I think we have another DM from the street.
Hi everyone, my name is Serenity Lawrence, and my question to you is, how do you plan to address the regional security challenges and maintain stability?
All right, thank you, Ms. Lyons, for your question. Well, I think first we can talk about Grenada's own security situation, because we are a very peaceful place. We do have, like every other country, from time to time, challenges with outbursts of violence, occasional murders, some property crime, oftentimes fueled by either alcoholism or drug addiction. We do know we have challenges with domestic violence and intimate partner violence. So those are issues we have to pay attention to domestically, and to make sure that not just from a law enforcement point of view, but from a social cohesion, from an education, from the right policy and values base, that we keep paying attention to this. Issues with prison reform is an example, because a lot of the people who go to prison repeatedly go back to prison. So that's one of the challenges we have to address. From a regional perspective, because we're an island, we are vulnerable to, I think, two main scourges. Guns being imported into our island, and drugs being imported, or Grenada being used as a transshipment point. We, again, from an education point of view, have to make sure that whether it's through music, art, culture, that this gun culture is not glorified. And that people understand that these are basically merchants of death. Firearms are meant to kill. There's no other way around it. And we have to make sure that socially, through the music, through the culture, through positive vibes, through the use of music, arts, creative economy, opportunities, education, the right moral values, that our young people, particularly our young men, don't get attracted to and addicted to this glorification of badmanism and gangsterism that some other countries in the region are plagued with. The second issue is we have to work with our regional partners to try and secure our borders. The government has taken the decision to make a significant investment in a significant Coast Guard vessel, to the tune of in excess of $20 million, which we are paying for, so that we can have this craft built, so that we can have a permanent presence on the sea. The specifications of the vessel should allow it to spend 6 months uninterrupted at sea with our Coast Guard men, so that we have better protection of our coast. And this is a significant investment, because we do recognize that the sea is a significant risk to our internal security. We have significant cooperation with our regional partners when it comes to things like gun crime, intelligence sharing, narco trafficking, trafficking, intelligence sharing, monitoring of gangs, anything to do with illicit and illegal migration. We have significant partnerships, and we work throughout the region, not just in the OECS, but at CARICOM and then with our larger partners like the United States, the UK, the European Unions, through Interpol, through the regional security system, through CARICOM impacts. That includes even things like cybersecurity. So there's a lot of cooperation that takes place within that region. We are also looking to begin to make significant investment in our border management systems by potentially moving to things like biometrics, because your biometrics can't be faked. Your eyes, your fingerprint is your fingerprint. So we are likely to see in the next several years significant investment at our ports of entry in having biometrics implemented to help improve border management and security as well. So these are just some of the initiatives that we are engaging with. And then on a geopolitical level, we are friends with everyone. We talk to everyone. We believe in diplomacy. I say all the time, the only thing we can do is talk and negotiate. We don't have an army. We can't invade nobody. We can't threaten anybody. We can't bully anybody. But we are happy to be friends with everyone. We are happy to negotiate whenever there are differences of policy or philosophy or differences in foreign policy.
Okay. How do you remember all of these things? I swear I need your brain just for one day. Folks, like we said, the time is moving, so we have to move with it. And at this point in time, we invite your calls. 423-3104. That's the number to call to ask the questions directly of the Prime Minister. 423-3104. We have a caller online? Caller, good evening.
Hello.
Welcome to the program.
Hello.
Good evening, caller. You're live. Go right ahead.
Hi, good evening. It's not really a question, it's an observation for the Prime Minister. I noticed that most of the development is taking place in South St. George's. South St. George seems to be congested. To me, there are so much vehicle. It seems as if there are more vehicle than people. And the other parts of the island, I haven't seen much happening there. We need the development. We need to see development happening in the other parishes like St. Mark's, especially St. Mark's and St. Patrick's. Under the CBI program, I think that there are lots of things happening in South St. George's, and we need to see that happening on the other parts of the island. Maybe the person who is responsible for overseeing the CBI program could put a clause in the agreement so that they would settle in an area that is designated by the government, like St. John's, St. Mark's, St. Patrick's, because it seems as if the wealth from the CBI program is mostly centered in South St. George.
Okay.
We need to see development happening in the other parts of the island because South St. George is congested. It's too
Thank you so much,
vehicle.
caller. I think we got the gist. Thank you so much.
Yes, well, I agree with the caller that we certainly want to see development spread as much as we can evenly across Grenada. So that point is well made. There are examples of that happening, maybe not to the extent of the concentration in the south of the island. We have to the very extreme north, the furthest point on Grenada, the Levera project, where a Chinese company is building out a hotel there. In fact, physically, it probably will be the largest hotel in Grenada. I think one story is 17 floors. I don't think there's any 17-floor building
17.
in Grenada. You can see the building significantly even when you're leaving Carriacou to come down. So there is development taking place there. There has been a significant thrust up the eastern side. We have Six Senses, which is open and operating in Las Vegas. We have the Intercontinental Hotel, which is right next door, which is carded to open in November. We expect basic construction work to be completed in July, and then a lot of finishing touches will take place for November. We have a condo development taking place right next to Intercontinental. But having said that, I think the caller's point about St. John, St. Mark, St. Patrick still is quite valid. The challenge, I think, has been that a lot of the development is tourism, real estate related, and obviously once you're close to the airport, once you're close to some of the best beaches, then you'd find private developers will favor that. But I think on the productive level, the task for us as a government is to try and find investment that could be tailor-made for St. Mark, St. John, St. Patrick, based on what are their unique advantages. And I'm thinking certainly from the productive sectors, because that's where, I'll give an example, as we move to create a policy for the creation of a medicinal-based cannabis industry. I don't think you can grow cannabis in the south of the island simply because of the dryness and the lack of water and so on. There's probably a greater opportunity for that in, say, St. Patrick or St. Mark and so on. When we talk about agro-processing again, the bulk of the produce are more likely to come from those areas. So we do think it is something we have to work on addressing to be able to spread the development more evenly in those parishes.
Okay. We have another caller. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program, and be as brief as possible, please.
Okay, good evening. Concerning security, I'm not supposed to ask a question, but I just want to share advice. Concerning security, we need more cameras in certain places in Grenada that will be safe to stay there and get videos of people that are trying to commit crimes and stuff throughout Grenada. So you put it by people you could trust, so that you could see people entering and exiting certain places, because you have some places that people could pass, like shortcuts and stuff, and commit crimes and get away with it. So I think we need to handle that kind of situation, especially coming for the festive season.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's an investment that the state has to make, particularly in public places, and also encouraging private property owners to also make that investment, because combined with public coverage and with private coverage, Grenada is a small place. Most of where we live are in concentrated areas, and it's certainly an opportunity for us to enhance public safety and security. So the caller is spot on.
Good evening, caller. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good evening, Ms. Arona, and good evening to the Prime Minister. So I would like to just highlight something to the PM that I observed with regards to his viewership on any program he's on. It doesn't matter where he is, the crowd follows him. I appreciate the starting of the Minister's Hour. However, the viewership is something I want him to take into consideration. People, the Grenadians, they follow you. We want to hear what you have to say. It obviously says that we trust you, we like listening to you, you seem to take matters serious, but I would like for him to have that discussion with some of the other ministers. I don't know if it's the approach, if it's the response time, but something definitely needs to be done with regards to where that is concerned. I don't know if the Prime Minister has ever considered probably not making all of the MPs on his team ministers the next time. Maybe that is something that needs to be considered, so they can really focus on their constituency and someone else really push the ministries forward. That I definitely think is something we need to consider. But I want him to see the seriousness of how Grenadians take him. And please don't take it for granted. Please don't let us down. We are really depending on you. And
All right, caller. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller, for the observations and the comments. First, I want to assure the caller and the public that I take the task and the responsibility of being Prime Minister very seriously. It's a singular honor to be asked to be served as a Member of Parliament, first for St. David and then as the Prime Minister. I may not take myself too seriously, but I certainly assure you that I take the responsibility and the privilege of being the Prime Minister of the country very, very seriously, and I will certainly continue to do my best to discharge the duties with the seriousness and the level of responsibility it deserves. I wasn't quite sure on the point of the viewership of programs that I am on compared with the Minister's Hour. The point of having the Minister's Hour is also to give the ministers an opportunity where they too can interact with the public in a similar manner in which I'm interacting. Of course, from time to time, the ministers will also come onto this program as guests. I have not yet been invited to do a Minister's Hour. I don't know by the powers that be if I will be doing a Minister's Hour too. But certainly we want to have more visibility, more exposure of my colleagues so that they too can engage directly with the public, directly with their constituents, and that's the reason for having it. if the caller is suggesting that the time when it's happening may not be optimal time, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the same time as this show. If it's not a good time, then I'm sure we'll be prepared to revisit to see what would be a more optimal time. And then on the point of one being an MP and one being a government minister, that is a serious point. There is no doubt that both responsibilities, when combined, could leave you exhausted. Both as individual, whether you're just an MP or you're just a minister, is weighty enough, and the task associated with it significant enough to be very challenging. And when combined with both, it's double challenging. I think the framers of our constitution envisaged that by having a lower house and an upper house, where you can have senators who are not necessarily running for office and are selected by certainly the side that wins the election, and similarly selected by the side that loses, and then you have independent senators. So it does give an opportunity for, say, senators to be ministers, and so you don't necessarily have to be an MP. If you have sufficient MPs in the House and you're confident that your MPs will follow and vote in support of policy of the government, you could have what I call backbenchers, or MPs who are not ministers. And actually, in this case, we had one MP who was not a minister for a significant period of time, the Honorable Ron Redhead. We agreed that both to give him an opportunity to pursue his studies, that it would be virtually impossible to be an MP, a government minister, and be pursuing studies at the same time. And so we agreed that the priority obviously was that of an MP. That is what he was elected to do. And personal growth and fulfillment is important to allow him to be a better MP and, if necessary, to be a better government minister. So the point is well made. It's part of the discussions about governance we have to take as to whether all MPs need to be ministers. No, all MPs don't need to be ministers. And I'm hoping that as our democracy matures, you know, there's sometimes an obsession with wanting to run or be an MP or a minister. The government is a lot more than that. You know, we need so much more than just an MP or a minister to make the state successful, that I think sometimes we lose our focus by just focusing on those two tasks, because there's only so much an MP can do himself, there's only so much a minister can do themselves without an appropriate team that makes them successful. I want to conclude on one point, which is to congratulate the Honorable Ron Redden, Member of Parliament for St. George Northeast, on completing his degree at St. George's University. He's graduating at the end of May, and I think it is a good example of what persistence, resilience, and taking on the challenge, because it's not easy to be an MP and study. And I want to say congratulations to him. I think it's a good example for young people to see that you can work and study at the same time and be successful at both.
I believe we have our final caller. Caller, good evening, and please be brief as possible.
Yes, sure. Good evening, Mr. PM, and to you, Aruna. Mr. Prime Minister, Grenville Town is ashamed. I am ashamed of Grenville Town, and I think that I don't know what is it you have in the budget for next year, for end of year, early next year, to make some deliberate effort with the business community and the government as a partnership to, you know, Liffey is in such a dilapidated state. The drains, it smells, everything is just terrible in the Grenville Town. And I am prepared with any committee or anything to let's get Grenville Town looking like a place people would want to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. I cannot disagree with you. The point that is made is valid. I can share some brief updates as to some of the things we need to and intend to address. The bus terminus is one of those issues we intend to address. We are currently working with the Grenada Transport Commission and the Port Authority to make sure that all of the bus terminuses are transferred to the legally to the Grenada Transport Commission, so we can begin to take over the management, upgrade and improvement of the bus terminus, because that's where a lot of the public interacts. Second, we do plan to improve the road infrastructure by repaving all of Grenville Town. That's the second issue. The third government project is the Grenville Commercial project, which it's the current old library building, which we intend to rebuild. So at least there will be one building that once completed will improve the landscape in Grenville. But to the point of working with the business community in Grenville, I think that is very, very important, because the vast majority of the buildings are in fact owned by the private sector, and we have to find a way to incentivize them also to make the buildings the aesthetics of the buildings look presentable and look appealing. So that is a project, and since she's volunteering, I hope we can contact her. But I think the point is valid, and all our tongues actually need significant improvement. Let's put it this way, in terms of the look of it, and Grenville is just one example of it. So the point is well made, and thank you for making the observation publicly.
And just in terms of the comment or the caller observation in terms of the minister's hour, I think another thing that we should probably do is be the visibility in their constituencies, and of course in the different constituencies, their visibility. Case in point, Apretut and that Saraka style event that they had. It's something that can be used in other constituencies. There's River Sally, there's La Portry, Saraka, and those are widely, for the most part, successful. Yes. So I guess it just means being a little bit more creative. But I saw you had a wonderful time at Apretut.
Yes, I want to thank the residents of Apretut. That's what the community spirit is important in building a country. You know, the government could only do so much. You could only do what you can do. But when it comes to connecting, when it comes to community spirit, when it comes to caring about where you're living, when it comes to wanting to create pride, places like Apretut have come a long way. When I was a child, Apretut had no road, no electricity, no running water. In fact, up until late last year, most of the residents of Apretut did not have Nawassa bone pipe water. What they had was a dam that they themselves, as members of the community, had sort of built, and a select number of them were getting water from that source. So, you know, when I got involved in public life, one of the things the residents early o'clock mentioned was this absence of pipe-borne water. And so we partnered with Nawassa and the residents of the community to make sure that everyone in Apretut now has access to pipe-borne water, which was a very successful project. Even in terms of things like the connection charges and so on, I contributed, and I say to people, that is what we use our allowances for. I contributed 10,000 from my MP's allowance to make sure that we can pay the connection costs and so on for the residents to get water. And coming out of that, the whole idea then is to build the community spirit, to build the community groups, to build the football groups around the young men. We had a live band. The kids were fascinated with the band and the playing of live music. In a not too distant future, before May, we'll be opening a music school in Bellevue, which is just down the hill from Apretut. So there's an opportunity for all of those kids who saw the live band, the live musicians, to come to the music school, to learn music, etc. That is how we deal with issues about social dysfunction, disorder, discipline, crime, and all those kinds of things, by actually going into the community and building our communities with so it's not just about the socializing. Obviously, it's good to do so. The residents cooked the food, they gave it away free, the band played for free. There were sponsors. The light sponsor came and gave us the lights for free. Wagiti gave us a significant discount on the tent. So everybody chipped in to make this a success. So we need to see more of that in our communities, where we care about what's happening. We support one another, and we try and make sure that we are more cohesive as a country.
Oh yes, and Guangkai also had their Saraka style event as well. So
there you go.
All right, I'm getting ready to wrap things up, but quickly, we've lost another faithful soldier of the NDC, Ms. Glenda, passed away. Any words you'd like to say?
Yes, I know we started on condolences and we're ending on condolences. So I want to express to Ms. Glenda and her, well, obviously she's deceased, to her family, friends, well-wishers. Again, my personal condolences on the passing of her death. She certainly will be missed, and may her soul rest in eternal peace.
Okay. And final thing, the diaspora homecoming.
Yes, the diaspora homecoming, it will be an exciting time. It will be an intriguing time. It's a time to reconnect. So I really want to impress upon our members in the diaspora to come home for the diaspora homecoming. It's an opportunity to reconnect. It's an opportunity to find out what's going on in Grenada. It's an opportunity to see how you can contribute, how we can utilize your talent to build the land of your birth, and to really transform Grenada for the next 50 years, as we talk particularly about things like Vision 75. So this is not just about remittances. This is not just about barrels. This is about your intellect, your connections, your capacity, your ideas, to help us become a better place, to help us become more efficient. Yes, to come back and invest in some of the areas that are of interest to the diaspora. For example, housing. That's a major area we think that can do with diaspora investment. Healthcare, I think we know the diaspora is quite passionate about this and wants that to improve so that many of them could actually come back. The new and emerging economies, in terms of the digital space, in terms of technology, in terms of artificial intelligence, we certainly need their assistance there. And then mentoring. it's important for us to also make sure that there are persons who can help our young people understand the ups and downs of life, understand geopolitics, understand migration policies, understand the history of black people in the Western world, what we've been through, what we've been able to achieve, what are the successes, because too often times we still view ourselves negatively. People in the diaspora have some of the highest home ownership in the United States, because when they go and they travel, they have very clear goals. They're going to improve themselves. They're going to improve the lives of their families back home. All of those lessons need to be taught and shared with our brothers and sisters in Grenada and in the region, so that people understand the significant contribution that the diaspora makes, not just to Grenada and the Caribbean, but even to building places like the United States and Canada and London and so on. And I think it's important, therefore, to have that reconnection.
Okay. And that's a wonderful way to end this evening's DM with PM. Thank you so very much to you, our viewers and listeners. And of course, we're back, season 4. And of course, we got to say special thank you to Power FM, Star FM, We FM, GBN, Fusion FM, Vibes FM for accommodating us. And of course, to everyone who made this production possible. Thank you so very much. You have one more thing to say, Priya? Yes.
Forgot. From 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. this Saturday, for the mothers of St. David's, I will be treating you specially at the Redgate office.
Wow.
So you can come out looking nice, well-dressed, and have a good time as we recognize and celebrate our mothers. Unfortunately, my mother will not be in Grenada at the time, so I'm giving a chance to all the other mothers to claim me for 5 hours from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. It's been put on by the UTAM, St. David's UTAM of the National Democratic Congress. And that's important because you see the young people recognize the obligation that we have to our mothers. So
only mothers of St. David's?
Well, if you storm, I don't think we'll throw you out.
Yeah, of course, maybe you can always use the opportunity quickly to extend Happy Mother's Day.
Absolutely. Since I will not be on another DMs with PM before Sunday, let me take the opportunity to wish all our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, our sisters, a happy Mother's Day. At the end of the day, one half are mothers, and then the other half are children of mothers. And so no matter how you do it, we will not be here without our mothers. So thank you for loving us. Thank you for bringing us into the world. Thank you for caring and nurturing us.
Okay. And on that note, thank you so much, everyone. Until next time, have yourselves a great Tuesday evening.